It's a good thing they weren't grass mud horses either. Hi, welcome to the Silver Spleen. My name is Frederick Forsyth, and this is my review of God of War. Gordon Chan has directed a lot of great movies, like Fight Back to School, Fist of Legend, and Painted Skin. He also directed the 4 trilogy, but I haven't seen those movies. God of War is an historically based story about a war between soldiers led by a Chinese general and pirates led by a samurai. I'm not in any position to talk about the historical accuracy of the movie or lack thereof, but frankly, that doesn't concern me. I don't watch movies to learn about history. I watch movies to be entertained. God of War was very entertaining to me for a lot of reasons. I'll say up front that I enjoyed this movie more than I expected to. One reason is that unlike a lot of similar movies, God of War actually told the story that it presented. I was surprised that during the movie, I knew who everyone was and why they were there and why they behaved in the way that they did. Like a lot of Chinese historical dramas, God of War introduces a pretty large number of characters. But unlike a lot of those other movies, God of War actually spends time letting us get to know them, not just as characters, but as people. What I mean is we're introduced to characters who have a certain role in the film, you know, like a general. But then, we also get to know them as human beings. God of War runs just over 2 hours, and while I can see that maybe a tighter edit would improve things a little, I didn't mind the runtime. It takes time to flesh out those characters, and because of it, I could relate to them better, and it allowed me to invest more in the story and the characters and the movie itself. Like I said, it's not often that movies like this, you know, humanize so many of their characters, so I really enjoyed it. I think it also makes the movie a lot better. Manages to weave some comic relief into his character, because in a number of different situations, he always kind of had the same response, and I found it really funny and entertaining. Timmy Hung deserves special mention not just for his impeccable martial arts skill, but for his acting in God of War. He inhabits his character as a person that's easily understood and empathized with. The same should be said of Guan Qian, who plays the general's wife. Her role might easily have been ornamental if for no other reason than it might have reflected the historical function of many of the wives of that era. But instead, she manages, in several different scenes, to create a distinct, likable, and very watchable character. Even the Japanese characters are shown to be human beings in this movie. Let's face it, that's a rare treat in a Chinese movie. It's also just a bonus that while all of them are good, one of them is really funny. The action scenes in God of War are, unsurprisingly, very, very good. From the large set pieces involving dozens of people, to a staff duel between Vincent Zhao and Sammo Hung, God of War will not disappoint action fans. And part of the reason for that is the cinematography, which I really enjoyed. Whether it was just kind of capturing a landscape, or the way the camera was used during the fights to really amplify the impact, I enjoyed it a lot. Certainly not everything in God of War is perfect, and most of the faults that I found have to do really with the filmmaking. Like a lot of movies, there's one scene that relies on a level of foreshadowed coincidence that would seem a lot worse if it wasn't in the middle of a very entertaining action sequence. Good thing there were 200 mud horses randomly laying around, that's all I'm saying. It's a good thing they weren't grass mud horses either. One problem that technology has actually brought to filmmaking instead of solving is high-definition video, because that makes it easier to see makeup and the glue line of wigs, or the very obviously artificial nature of some of the armor and the helmets. Now, I'm not blaming anybody for this, and I'm sure that over time it's going to get better. But these days, it's still noticeable, especially if you watch it on a big screen. Speaking of noticeable, in one scene near the end of the film, the sun apparently goes down in like 30 seconds. 1 minute it's late afternoon, and the next, night has fallen like a poleaxed wrestler. But like I said before, what's going on in that scene is more than enough to offset my picayune criticism. Still, as long as we're pointing things out, in one scene, Kitty Jung is walking down a street in her regular clothes. Cut to someone else for a line or two in a slightly different place, and when it cuts back, she's wearing her armor. And she didn't have it on underneath her regular clothes. At least I don't think she did. It's kind of funny that she spends the vast majority of this movie walking around like a hand grenade that just can't wait to go off. She plays the general's wife's attendant and spends 90% of the movie with a look on her face like,
and I wish a motherfucker would come over here.
Yeah, like that. Unfortunately, when the pin finally does get pulled, we only get about 30 seconds to see her fighting. Now, there are obviously a lot of very competent martial artists in this cast, but I wish more screen time was given to her fighting. Now, I understand the reasons why, but, you know, we can all wish. And speaking of wishful thinking, we all know that, yes, the Chinese invented gunpowder, but apparently they also invented a hand cannon that reloads in about 5 seconds. I'm sorry, but it's going to take a little longer than that. And I think it's really more an issue of editing as opposed to thinking that that was a realistic thing. It just bugged me, but let's face it, that's not hard to do, right? Overall, I have to say God of War was a lot more watchable, a lot better, and a lot more fun than I had expected. I didn't think it was going to be bad, I just didn't think I was going to enjoy it this much. And I really did. Now, I would recommend watching this movie in a cinema. Go see it on a big screen where it's going to be nice and loud, because that's really the best kind of experience for a movie like this. If you don't get that chance, wait until you can rent it or buy a disc. Don't steal this movie. And as long as we're talking about money, please click on the link to go to my Patreon page, because I do this for free, but I don't have to. If you enjoyed this review, please let me know. And if you didn't, let me know. If you enjoy the channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.